Alright, so I got my pieces here, got my templates that have been cut out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my templates in the most efficient way of using this wood. So I'm going to take a really sharp pencil, and with a really sharp pencil I'm going to outline the pattern, and then I'll take it over to the bandsaw and then cut it out. And then from there we can continue with the project. So nothing major here, you're just outlining everything. Good sharp pencil, make sure the line is decent enough that you can see it. I know it's a little bit more difficult with a dark pencil on dark wood, but the China marker would just be too fat to do this. The tip is too blunt. I wouldn't be able to get a sharp edge as I could with a pencil. Alright, so I've got that one pattern taken care of, so that's pretty much how it looks. Not sure how you're going to see that on the camera, but there it is. You can see the pencil outlines here. So I'm going to finish this up here. I'm going to do all my patterns, get them all traced out. Then we'll take it over to the bandsaw and get this all cut out. I'm going to do all my patterns on these pieces of wood. So once that's taken care of, then the next step is just cutting everything instead of coming back and forth for the medium size and the large size. So we'll get that taken care of, and I'll be back later, but for you again it's just going to be a matter of a couple seconds. So be back in a while. Okay, so we're at the bandsaw. I've got my patterns marked out on the ipe wood, so we'll just use the bandsaw, get these patterns cut out, and then we'll start putting these candle holders together. So I'm going to turn on my dust collector, get the bandsaw going, and get these cut out. So here we go. Alright, so I've shut off the bandsaw and the dust collector. The camera also had a bit of an issue. But what I'm going to wind up doing, so that we're not sitting here watching me cut every single piece out, I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of these out, and then when we come back we'll start fitting everything together and going from there. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Alright, so this is what the project looks like. This is just a dry fit. There's no finish or any glue or anything like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it all apart. I'm going to put the walnut oil on, and then we're going to let that dry for a little bit, and then maybe put a second coat on, and then get the glue and put it all together. So this is just a dry fit. This is how it looks. So it didn't turn out too shabby, but it'll look a lot nicer once we get the finish on. So I'm going to take this all apart and start getting the finish prepared, and then I'll be back and we'll put the oil on. Alright, so we've got our oil here ready to go, and I've got my legs sitting here with my blocks for the candle holder here and for the stabilizer here. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my walnut oil and just kind of rub it on the ipe wood, and the color difference should be a little bit darker. There you go. See? It'll have a nice shine to it when it's done. Now there isn't too much in the way of pores with ipe wood. It's a very kind of like a stringy type of a wood, a very fibrous style. So we'll just get the oil put on and all along the top here for basically the end grain, and then at the bottom here as well, get it in there and along the back side. And that's pretty much it. There isn't too much to this. There's not a lot you can really do. There isn't a whole lot of surface area to be done here. Your hands are going to get pretty oily. So we're going to put that there, and then we just continue on with the rest. See? This is kind of like pornography for woodworkers. Everybody wants to see the finish go on. They all kind of look at it like some major event. It's kind of like when everything starts to come together. Your project is finally starting to get that really completed look, and you're getting the idea of how the whole finished project is going to wind up looking. So it goes from this pale look to this nice darker, shinier, more of a lustrous look to it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the finish on the rest of these, and then when it's done, then we'll come back and I'll hit some of these pieces that need the glue. Hit them with the glue, or maybe I'll just kind of put a drop of glue on all of them. This way it'll save me from fitting one and fitting another and fiddling around and possibly breaking something with my luck. And then once that's taken care of, we'll put it all together, and then we'll see the finished project once it's finally completed. Like I said, this project did take me a little bit longer than I would have liked. It looks like an easy project, but there's a lot of sanding to do. There's a great deal of sanding to be done with this project. More than I was anticipating, that's for sure. So, I got that taken care of. We'll get the wood, the red oak here with the oil on it. There's not much difference for red oak. Nothing really pops or stands out. It just goes from a dry look to a bit more of a glossy-ish, wet look to it. Alright, so I'm going to finish this all up, then we'll get it put together and we'll get the whole thing taken care of, and this will be another project in the books. So stick around and I'll be back in a few moments. Alright, so all the pieces now have their finish on them. So as you can see here, I don't know how much you can see, but you can see all the gloss coming off of that from the oil. So we're going to let that sit for probably an hour, hour and a half or whatever, and then I'll come back, wipe it off, let it dry a little bit, and then I'll put one more coat on, let that dry, and then I'm going to hit it with the polyurethane, the satin gloss. And then from there we'll put the whole thing together, a couple drops of glue inside the little bit of a joint here so that it kind of stays put. And then that's it. This project will be completed. Let the whole thing kind of come together, dry, and it's going to end up looking nice. So yeah, hang tight. Okay, so I've only got one coat of the walnut oil on because with the ipe wood it takes an extremely long time to penetrate, and I left it for a lot longer than the 1 hour than I was intending to leave it. I actually ended up leaving it overnight, and there was still little areas after I wiped it off. It was mostly soaked in, but there were spots that were still kind of bleeding out. So there's only one coat of oil that's going to go on. Otherwise the other coat won't really get in there and it'll just kind of be wasted really. So at this point the project is now ready for the next step, when that's going to be putting on the polyurethane. So I was hoping for more of a wipe-on poly, but I don't have one, and I've been practicing with the spray-on, and it looks a little hideous at first, but it kind of self-levels after a while. As far as applying this, it's just like applying kind of like a spray paint. You hold it about 10-12 inches away, and then from side to side in a sweeping motion. Okay, and light coats go a lot further than a very heavy coat. And if I look here, it's pretty even. That looks actually pretty decent for now. So what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to leave this one, and then after it's dried, I'm going to sand it pretty lightly with some either 600 or 800 grit or something like that. Alright, I just wanted to give you a quick show here as far as what it looks like after everything's been sprayed. And this is pretty much what it's going to look like. I sprayed only the one side because I'm going to need to give this a couple of hours to dry, and then from there we'll flip it over and then give another coat to the other side, and then back and forth a couple times like that. So this is the way it looks when you put the spray on. It's got a lot of that spray look to it, all those dots and stuff. It kind of looks a little bit wet. But once it dries, it'll change a little bit, and then when we sand it and add the second coat from there, then it'll kind of start looking a lot better than it does now. So I just wanted to let you see what it's looking like, so that if you decide to do the project and you put a spray on and it looks like this, don't panic. This is the way it's supposed to look. And then you sand it down and go from there. So stick around, we'll go to the next step after I get this step completed, and then we'll see how it turns out. Okay, the first coat of the polyurethane that I've put on is ready to be sanded. And what you wind up with is, well, it still looks a little spotty. Some of these looked a little better. I've sanded some of them, but you still see, if I get the light on it here, you can still see it's pretty miserable looking. You're not going to put this together with it looking like that. So what I've got here is about some 2500 grit sandpaper, and to do the light sanding, I just basically lightly put it down on the sandpaper, and then just without putting much downward pressure, enough to just hold it in place, I'll hold it in different spots, go over it 3 or 4 times back and forth, and then one final rub. And then you go from this, I'm not sure how well you're going to see this in the light, but you go from this with all its spots and all that you can see, especially down here. You see all the little dots from the spray, and then it goes to something like this, and it's got that more of a satin kind of a sheen to it. Now it's not perfect, I got a little bit more sanding to do. Now you don't want to sand the finish right off of it, that's obviously counterproductive, but you want to sand it down just so that it's pretty smooth looking. Now the other side, you can see on this side was not sprayed, but this is that bleed out that was happening from the oil, so this will have to kind of get wiped off. I just wanted to let this bleed out as much as possible before I even think of spraying the other side. Once these are all sanded, then we go on to the step of spraying either again, or I can spray the other side. But I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to spray the same side again after about another hour or two, and then re-sand it, let it dry, and then I'll flip it over and work on the other side. This will give the wood a chance to kind of dry a little more, let that finish dry a little bit more, so that it'll be a little bit better looking instead of trying to rush the process. So yeah, just wanted to show you that, and we'll get this all finished up and yeah, get this project done once and for all. Project's taking a little bit longer than I would have liked, but that's because there's a lot of little things to be done, especially sanding. Sanding is probably the thing that takes you the most time on this project. Anyways, I'll get this taken care of, and we'll be back a little bit later. Alright, so what I've gone and done is I've gone ahead and I've put the oil on all sides, and then I gave it a little bit of the polyurethane, and then as a last touch I've put some conservator's wax on and then wiped it all in and gave it this nice, I'll get the light on it here, a bit of a satin feel to it, and it's made it nice and smooth. I did it on all sides. It's an extremely long process. You got to get in every piece, in every nook and cranny, on every side of everything. It was just time consuming. So I've got the other two put together. I saved some time that way, so that's kind of there it is. So that takes care of that. I'll show you the big presentation later. Now in order to figure out because this got really out of hand fast on me, to figure out which notch fit for which cut. Every single block was different because each cut was kind of fitted slightly differently. It was a nightmare and a half. So, and then after I wiped on some of the finish, my numbers actually kind of rubbed out, so I had to reconfigure everything. So, what I've done now, the other two are done like I said, so we'll put this one together. And what I've done is I've marked up here, I don't know if you can see it, let me see if I can zoom in. Just as a mental note here, you can write it on a piece of paper, just off to the side there. I'm going to have to move the camera, it's going to make some noise here. Alright, so what I've done is I've marked on a piece of paper my top block, which is the one that has the hole in it. I've marked where piece number 2, 3, 4, 1, or 1, 2, 3, 4, however you want to do it, don't matter. And on the bottom of the legs, I've put numbers. Get the light in here. Now you can see that's a number 4. So 4 is going to mate into number 4 for the top. So this will go in like that. And then number 4 for the bottom. There's the bottom block. There's number 4. So I know that number 4. And my numbers are going to be on the bottom. My numbers are not going to face up. That's going to be pretty ugly looking. If I do that, you're going to see numbers, right? But if you're out like this, nobody's going to see it. So that's my 2 cents as far as a tip. So this will go into number 4 here. This one's going to mate into number 4. So we put these two in. You're going to need more than 2 hands sometimes for this part of the job. Okay, so number 4 fits in. Sometimes you get a bit of a loose piece in there. So sometimes you're going to need just a touch of glue, which I've got right here, a little cyanoacrylate glue. Don't even have to really squeeze the bottle. I do have to squeeze it to get the tip started here. And then you just kind of very gently, just a small little bit, not even that much. So I'm going to mate number 4 into number 4, and that'll end up holding after a few seconds there. And then after that's in, I'm going to mate up, what number is this? This is number 3. So we get the light in here. Yeah, number 3. So number 3 is going to go to number 3. So we put these two in. Alright, now we don't crank them together, like I don't squeeze them together, because what's going to end up happening is it's going to kind of offset these things just a little bit. I just want it in there enough to hold it in place. Because if I push too far in with one, the angle is I gotta see, the angle is off, and then things are going to be pretty difficult to get together. This number 2. So number 2 is going to go into number 2. Oh, I got lucky. There it is. So number 2 goes there, just to tack it, to hold it. And then the last piece is number 1. And number 1, obviously number 1, goes into there. And once we get it, we just kind of push it all in together gently. Gently, gently. Especially with woods that are got a lot of fibers like this, which can easily blow out. Which happened to me. I had to kind of re-glue a piece. So we just kind of squeeze it in together gently. Top and bottom at the same time, and you can hear it kind of coming together. Just squeeze it in there. Now don't over squeeze. We're not trying to prevent water from leaking. We're not trying to prevent a water leak here. And now this, just bring it out just a little bit. Now in order to level the feet, what I do is I'm going to have to bring this down so you can see it. I'll give you a better angle, and I'll fix the camera here. So then, in order to, once I get this complete, there. So in order to flatten out level, I just put my hand flat here. Zoom out a little bit. Okay, I put my hand flat and I just push down just a little, and just a little wiggle motion, and that makes it sit relatively flush. If it doesn't sit flush, then I'll just kind of pull out one of the legs a little bit, just kind of make it so that it sits without rocking around back and forth. So that's it. This is thankfully the end of the project. This took a lot longer than I wanted to. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to set these up, and I'm going to get some candles. We're going to do the final presentation, and this project is done. And yeah, whether you choose to do it or not, be prepared for a lot of tedious work. A lot. I'll be back in a moment with the final presentation. Stick around. Well, as promised, here it is. Project's finally come to a completion, thankfully. This took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. A lot of, like I mentioned earlier, you heard me talk about a lot of sanding, a lot of tedious stuff. It turned out nice. Would I do it again? I don't know. because this is such a time-consuming project, a soul-sucking project, that there was just so much little things that had to be done with this. If you look, closely at all the sides that are involved, I mean, you've got this little groove that's in here. You've got, 4 sides. You've got the notch to deal with. You got the bottom to deal with, those bottom curves here, that contour going on. You got to sand each side. You got to sand each contour. You got to sand the top and bottom block. You got to sand all the sides of the block. And then after you've done all that, and you get your order and everything put together as a dry fit to make sure it's going to go smoothly, then you've got to, I had to oil everything. And then after the oil, a little bit of polyurethane. After the polyurethane, sand it. And then after that, I buffed it with, I used actually one of the Dremel motor tools there with a little buffing wheel on it. I just wanted to see if that would do any good. It wasn't bad. I don't know if I'd bother with the Dremel again, because you can just wipe it with by hand using a soft cloth. And then after that, I decided, well, just for that little silky feel, because I could still feel that polyurethane still had just a little bit of a... It wasn't as nice feeling as it could have been. So I put a little conservator's wax on. That's something you can get from Lee Valley online or Lee Valley at the store or whatever. I can't remember what the bottle goes for. I think it's $12 or $14. Actually, I've got it in the cabinet behind me. I should probably pull it out and show you, but that might take a few minutes. But anyways, this project, and then putting it all together, took some time fitting it together and stuff like that. It wasn't as easy and smooth as what I thought it would have been. Would I do the project again? Maybe. I've discovered a few things along the way of when I was doing it. But I think I'm going to, if I ever decide to do this project again, it's going to be a long time before I do it. So all in all, it's a nice looking project. I'm not sure I'm going to give this one away because it took so blasted long to do. I might end up just keeping this, I don't know. But yeah, not too bad. Made a nice little project. If you have patience and time, I recommend you go ahead and do it. What you might want to get is some inserts here. Those you get those brass inserts, those little circular inserts for inside here. I think they're just called brass candle holder inserts, for lack of a better term. And that'll make the candles a little bit more stable, because the hole itself was 7/8 of an inch. These candles are not 7/8 of an inch. They're the only things I had around. So for the presentation, this is what we got. So, not too shabby. Turn the light out here, you might get a little bit more of an effect. Yeah, it's a nice project. Came together pretty decently. The choice of wood that I did, the Ipe and the red oak, was a nice contrast. I was expecting it to be a little bit, not as good looking, but it actually turned out pretty darn good. Let's get a bit of a close-up here, and there you go. So, that's pretty much it for this project. I'm not sure yet what I'm doing for my next project, but, stay tuned. I'll certainly let you know and have it posted as soon as I get it done. So, thanks for sticking around with me and seeing this project to the end and watching all 3 parts, and hope to see you again. Go make something.